Hey everyone, if you didn't know, my name is Alex Moody. I'm diagnosed PTSD, bipolar, and depression. I've also been a police officer for 9 years and 2 months now. I wanted to make this video to talk about how my job has affected me mentally and how I believe my mental illness is from my job. Um, Everyone says you need to leave work at work and your personal life at your personal life, but sometimes it's hard or impossible to do that. The things I'm about to tell you is actually stuff I've seen and I've dealt with on scenes at work, and the things that still haunt me at night, keep me awake, makes it hard for me to sleep. Some nights I get no sleep. Some nights I sleep 20 hours. It's very weird, but it's hard to describe what I feel at home without describing what I've seen. So the stuff I've seen is suicides. In the department I work for, every suicide gets investigated. Like it could potentially have been a homicide. So I've seen people hung. I've seen people shot in the head by themselves. I've seen people overdose. I've seen people drink so much alcohol that they throw up everything basically in them. They throw up all their blood and die in bed. I've also been to fire calls where once the fire department puts out the fire, you have to go in and find the bodies. And sometimes you find multiple bodies. And sometimes that smell stays with you. It stays in your clothes for days, no matter how many times you wash them. You could be driving home and smell a chimney, someone having a fire in a chimney or a backyard fire, or someone barbecuing. And that memory comes back to you. I've seen car accidents where whole families were killed. 2 and 3 year olds in the back seat were killed on impact. And for some officers that have 2 and 3 year olds, I know they picture that being their kid, that could possibly have been their kid dead in that back seat. I've seen rapes from the ages of 2 to 80. I've seen rapes where I've made the scene and it's a 5 year old and the person who did it's a family member in the next room. And you're not supposed to have emotions on this job. You're not supposed to get emotionally attached. You're not supposed to. It's just business. It's a task. You get there, you got to do A, B, and C, and D, and you go home. But how can you not take this stuff home with you? Like, how can you not see a 10-year-old shot dead in the middle of the road and you have to hold that crime scene for 3, 4, 5 hours with literally a body 10 feet away from you dead, and it's a 10-year-old? How can you do CPR on someone who's breathing when you started and by the time you're done, they're dead? How can that not stay with you? And I think that's the issue with me. I think some officers are stronger. That might make me sound weaker, but I think some officers are stronger mentally and they can process it better where it doesn't stay with them as much. But I think most officers have some sort of mental illness going on. It might not be diagnosed and they might be self-medicating. And what I mean by self-medicating is a lot of officers drink daily. They drink at night to go to sleep. They drink heavily on their off days. Um, that's just because when they get home, all those images and all those things they've seen are still there. And the only way to go to sleep is to drink yourself to sleep, basically. Drink yourself where you can't think anymore. And I used to be there. I used to drink a lot every night, just to get some sleep. And that's really, it wasn't because I was an alcoholic. It wasn't because I liked alcohol, which I do. I don't want to say I don't. But it was to forget or to try to forget. But then the next day when you woke up, it was 10 times worse because alcohol is a depressant and it can't really help that much. There's just certain things you see on this job that haunt you and stay with you forever. Um, and there's a couple with me, a house burning and going in and finding dead bodies and dead kids that burnt to death that weren't able to get out of the house. I've seen decapitated bodies where the head's here and the body's there from car accidents. CPR on someone when they die while you're working on them, for a firefighter or a nurse or a police officer, that has to stay with you. I don't think there's any way it can't stay with you. My issue is at the beginning, I could keep work at work and personal at personal, but I feel like my brain, certain things did stick with me, but I felt like my brain could handle it. And then I felt like my brain was like a cup, and every little thing, every new thing, weekly, daily, that I saw was a little like a marble in the cup. Eventually the cup got full, and marble started falling out, and I wasn't able to control it. And that's the issue, is how much stuff, if you work at a large department, a department with a big population city or a violent city, you're going to see these things daily, weekly, monthly, and you have to go back to work. You have to do your job. You might be on a scene with a car with 4 people dead inside of it, and you might be there for 3 or 4 hours. But after that 3 or 4 hours, you're going to get another call. And that call might be a domestic, where boyfriend beat up girlfriend, or a drunk guy that at Walgreens that won't leave. But you're leaving a scene where you just saw 4 dead people and 2 of them were young kids. And you're supposed to turn that off on your way to the next scene that took you 6 minutes to get there. You can't. Or at least I can't. I couldn't. Or maybe I could, and then once all this mental stuff happened, I couldn't. I've had training officers who trained me on this job commit suicide. And of course, suicide, I always used to think suicide was a very selfish act, but I just think the brain can only handle so much. And on the surface, he was happy, joking. He joked with everybody. He was happy with everyone. But it's very hard to ask for help and to get help, and then to stick with what the help is when you see these things. I mean, it's hard. I don't know how else to say it. It's hard to see things the brain wasn't meant to see on a daily or weekly basis over 9, 20, 30 years. I hope that enlightens you into what police officers see. I know police officers get a bad rap at times. I know there are bad police officers out there. I think there's bad people at every job. But I do think most police officers are there to help. I also think most police officers have mental issues from the stuff they've seen. And I believe it's hard to process that. And it's a stigma that officers don't want to ask for help. I mean, when people are having trouble, they call for police officers to come help them. And their most traumatic events, they call the police for help, and we show up. And that's what we do. We deal with other people's most traumatic events. And we have a job to do, and we do it. But those traumatic events stay with us also, because we're there and we're a part of it. So hopefully that's a little insight into the mind of a police officer and how it can affect us mentally. If you like this video, please subscribe. There will be more to come. If you have any questions, please comment, and I will answer all of them. Thank you for watching.